If you're struggling with poor soil and weeds, this is what you need right now to fix that for the next spring. We're going to talk about silage tarping, adding soil, and planting cover crops. Cover cropping, silage tarp, it's perfect for fall garden prep, but given the amount that we're doing back here and all the stuff we have to do in between now and then, we have the perfect opportunity to silage tarp and cover crop one area and then move it down for all the rest of our grows that we plan to develop. And that's going to give us a long time to develop a healthy ecosystem without any sprays or chemicals. I'll be talking about a couple of different areas we're developing behind us. The first is a 10th acre garden in which we'll have traditional garden beds with low tunnels. There'll be a propagation house and some raised beds. And past that, you're seeing some of the beginnings of silage tarping, our other cover crop test areas in which we plan to do a big sunflower garden next year. So through all of this dirt work, silage tarping and cover cropping, we plan to build a very healthy ecosystem without any chemicals. Let's talk about what we first did to start prepping the garden area. Initially, we brought in some topsoil, some sandy loam. This land's pretty flat, but any piece of land is going to have some divots, and we did an initial cover to flatten everything out and to slope the drainage back towards the backside where it goes into a creek. We cleared the land of any little debris, rocks, anything like that. We didn't have a whole lot here, but this was old pasture land, so there was some rebar and just some kind of junk that we found buried in it after a while, and any land is going to have a little bit of debris. We then scalped the ground with a mower, and we kind of mowed it in a way that we pushed all of the grass out. Isn't that right, buddy? We then filled a ton of sandbags, and if you want to see how we did that really quick, check out that link right there. And we prepped the area by putting the sandbags all around where we knew we were going to silage tarp. We then unfolded the silage tarp, put it over the 10th acre garden, and began to sandbag. And if you'll see in this footage, we had the white side up at this time, and behind me now we have the black side out. And the reason is, it was well over 100 degrees whenever we first silage tarped that garden, and I didn't want to cook the ground. So you still get that oculation of depriving the plants of sunlight, so you're basically taking everything and decomposing it, but you're not losing. You okay? Before we laid out the tarps, we heavily watered the area. That water has a real hard time escaping once the silage tarp is down. The white side up that we did in the summer is reflecting a lot of the heat, but it's still generating a lot of heat right there at the surface as the sun is hitting it. That high heat, that high humidity is basically cooking everything that was in the ground. But at the same time, the earthworms and the microbes tend to go a little deeper, so you don't have to worry about cooking that biodiversity. Now right now you see that we have the black side up because we're going into the fall. It's already a lot cooler. Thank you for not being so hot all the time. But with that being said, we want to draw in as much heat as possible at this time of the year. So black side down absorbs the heat. It's still doing all the cooking. Let's take a look. We've only had the silage tarp down a couple of weeks. I'm just going to pull it back a little bit. This is nowhere near done, but I'll show you the difference between the grass and what's been silage tarped. So some of the hardier stuff is starting to yellow a little bit, and all of the more delicate and grassy vegetation has already died out. And you're starting to see a lot of insect activity as they're moving in and about. Let's take a look at the ground and get a comparison. So this is just outside of the silage tarp, same grass, same vegetation, everything's kind of green, but you can tell that this is growing up a lot better than what is under the silage tarp. So that's the difference after a couple of weeks. Again, just imagine if that was on there for the full 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the time of the year and how bad you need the silage tarp. Once you pull that off, the ground's ready to go to put the cover crop on. Let's go take a look over at the other garden to see what it looks like when it starts coming up. All right, so one thing that we did that's a little different than a lot of times you'll just pull it up and directly seed it. We have almost 100% clay here, and I needed to adjust that soil composition a little bit. So I brought in two different materials. One, a washed sand. Now, washed sand has gone through a process to eliminate organic matter, any clay, any other topsoils, and it's just pure sand. Washed sand is typically a very coarse sand and it's great for drainage, but I didn't want to just have that, so we also brought in something called cushion sand. So I had to make a decision. As farm owners and gardeners, you're going to have to make decisions in that anytime you bring something on, I am running the risk of bringing some weeds on, but here's why I'm not worried about it. We brought in a last little bit of load. If you can see by this graph, we went ahead and graphed this whole area so we could really see from a digital standpoint where the low spots were. And we did a full top dressing, and we kind of built everything up about 3 inches between the coarse wash sand and the cushion sand. I did not bring in straight topsoil because I didn't want that much weed pressure. We have a little bit of a luxury in that we're doing this over a long period of time and getting basically this plot ready for next spring. So we have the time to do it. If you're gonna rush it, maybe just go straight to the compost after the cover crop. I know we're covering a lot right now, but at the end of the video, we're going to tell you how you can join our live 1-hour webinar where we're going to cover in depth the soil tarping, the cover cropping, the soil testing, all that stuff. After we did that leveling and bringing in the sand, let's talk about the cover crop that we chose. It's a winter mix consisting of daikon radish, which is going to give us at least a 10 to 12 inch long fat radish that's going to go down, and that's going to help break through some of that clay, open it up, and as it decomposes, the sand is going to help fill that in over time. It's not an overnight fix, but it's certainly going to help us long term. We also have hairy vetch, and that is a nitrogen fix. It's one of those plants that pulls in oxygen from the atmosphere, stores it in the roots, so when we cover crop it, that nitrogen gets put back into the soil and released. There's also a winter rye component, which is kind of a grass-like situation. It's going to cover very quick. It has a pretty wide root zone, so that's going to help us with any erosion control. Again, we brought in a lot of sand in a couple of different variations, and I don't want that washing away as the winter rains come. So these large masses of root structures, it's not only going to help build up the nitrogen, but it's also going to help keep the soil that we brought in place. All that was very expensive, the labor's expensive, you don't want that washing away. We also have camelina. That's helping with some of the late and early pollinators. It's also just gives us a little bit more biodiversity. So that good mix of perfect seeds for our soil conditions. Basically, as this cover crop comes up, we're going to crimp it, which means we're just going to take a stick and push it down, heavily wet, recover crop again. The length of that is going to be determined by how cold it is at the time, and of course we're going to go black side up. Once that's done, I'm going to show you what we're going to put down next. So when we pull this cover crop up, we should have a nice, dense, almost completely decomposed mat of organic matter that has basically transformed this clay underlayment, sandy top dress, and now we have some organic matter, some roots, we got all that biodiversity going on, and then we're going to pop string lines and make all of our rows. Now we recently did a soil test video, and that's where we were testing this exact soil, and we learned that we had a very high pH and that we were completely at a nutrient loss. So the cover crop is going to help add some nutrients. Now we did put down a little bit of starter fertilizer and micronutrients that was organically derived when we first put this down to kind of give it a head start because it was so depleted. But once that organic matter is done, we're going to add another layer of fresh compost that's consisting of cow manure, a little bit more sand, and then there's something called screens that has very fine particulates of pine bark mulch. So as we spread this over the beds, that's going to give us our planting surface which we're going to either do direct seed or put our transplants in. And again, these will be a nice rows that we're basically going to pile up exactly like this in a column. We'll rake it smooth, and then in between those divots, I'm going to go ahead and put the pine bark mulch and or cedar mulch so we have walkways to walk in that as that breaks down further builds up the soil. That'll be our permanent rows. So here's the takeaways. We took raw land, we silage tarped, killing off the original vegetation. We did this with zero chemicals and zero disturbance to any underground activity from earthworms or any of the ecology that was currently on this property. We did that in such a way that we didn't cook those off, and then we prepared the land for our eventual, when we brought in the sand to adjust our clay soil. We then put in a cover crop that's going to add nutrients. It's going to add a new mat of matter to kind of help start building up that soil basically from the ground up. We're going to cover crop that again to lock in those nutrients, and when we pull that back, we're going to add in a perfect mixture that we're going to be able to put our starts in. So over time, in a non-chemical way, we're going to start building up our soil health in our 10th acre garden. And as those silage tarps get removed, they can then start developing other areas on the property. We're going to reduce the amount of mowing that we have to do while adding new plots and cover crops. So there's so much more that we could say about cover cropping, and to cover you on that, we have a live webinar September 28th, 2025 with Randy Cummings, in which we talk about how we decided the cover crop that we selected and that we talked about, but all of the other benefits of cover cropping in a deep dive. So click the link below to watch that, and if this is after that live event, we're going to switch that link out with the replay from that event. There's no time like the present to cover crop. Again, this is a long-term process. We're starting months in advance and ready for spring. But when we pull that back and we add that compost, we're gonna have no spray, weed-free garden beds that's perfect for planting. We'll see you in the next video.